Calling this meeting of the Historic Districts Review Board to order. And today we are January the 10th, 2023. Melissa, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Rios,
Here.
Vice Chair Guida,
Here.
Member Aguilar Medrano.
Here.
Member Berkeley.
She will join us on Zoom, I believe.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Member Beachside,
Excused,
Member Bienvenue,
excused,
Member Larson.
excused.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Any changes to the agenda? Heather?
Yes, Chair Rios, the cases, Mount Carmel cases, the three at the end of the agenda will need to be postponed to the next hearing, January 24th.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as just amended?
Guida moves to approve as amended.
Aguilar Madrano seconds.
Thank you. We have minutes of December the 13th, 2022. Any changes to?
Madam Chair, I believe we need to vote on the approval of the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Member Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
And thank you, Vice Chair Rita, for calling that to my attention. December the 13th, 2022 minutes, changes? Yes. Member Medrano Aguilar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 4, paragraph 5, if you can change it to, she thought the 6-foot setback was insufficient. And then on page 12, paragraph 6, if you can change it to read, Member Aguilar Medrano said she had concerns about the steel arbor, which is visible from the street. This is getting into the details, but I wanted to provide you with some constructive comments to consider incorporating in case the board decides to see this project again. And that's all. Thank you.
Member Guida, do you have anything?
I do not.
And Member Berkeley? I don't hear anything. Thank you, Member Berkeley. Motion to approve is just amended.
Guida moves to approve as amended.
Aguilar Madrano seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
We have under findings of fact and conclusions of law, we have 8. Are there any changes to any of these, either staff or board? It appears not. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Guida.
Sorry.
Excuse me. Sorry, I don't know how to, I raised my hand on the Zoom. I have a change.
Yes, please.
It's for number 8. Case 2226066 HDRB. On page 4, the second line, it's just a typo. They left out the word board, so it should say the board finds.
Thank you. Any other changes? None being, I will entertain a motion to approve as amended with number 8.
Guida, so moved.
Aguilar Madrano seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Any matters from the public? Anyone on Zoom? Oh. Are you speaking, sir, in specific to a case? Because now is the time, if you have something to discuss that doesn't have to do with a specific case, you may speak.
2 minutes? 2 minutes. Okay, I'll speak very quickly. My name is Stephen Fox. I'm founder of New Millennium Fine Art. I've been in business in downtown Santa Fe for 42 years. I've been involved with the United Nations since I was about 5 years old. And I've started a branch of the United Nations in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The details are complicated. If you could write a letter to this USA Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, 2201 C Street, and ask him to come visit Santa Fe and see why it should be a branch of the United Nations should be here. In Kenya, there are, when you want me to stop talking, just go like this.
Yeah, just go right ahead.
Okay, so that's better amplification. So in Kenya, there's the United Nations Environment Program that was started by a person named Maurice Strong and his wife Hannah Strong. They now live in southern Colorado near the Crestone, Colorado. And there are other branches of it. Aeronautics is in Montreal. Of course, the Palace of the Nations is in Geneva, Switzerland. And we need one here because the one in New York is not addressing problems of stopping child trafficking, not addressing problems of nutrition, consumer protection, and longevity, and a couple of other major concerns. I've discussed them with the former ambassador to the United Nations, William Blaine Richardson III. His office is 216 North Washington. And we're making some tremendous progress. I've been able to stop Pfizer from deploying 1 billion of their so-called vaccines in the 45 poorest nations of the world. And an extra 35, I wrote to all the UN ambassadors. See, the chairman of Pfizer wanted to give, this Greek bearing gifts. Do you remember ever read Homer? The Greeks, beware Greeks bearing gifts. Okay, so to make a long story short, I was successful in preventing this, derailing his plan, and saved 1 billion people right here in Santa Fe from correspondence in Santa Fe. So another accomplishment in this last year was getting the Human Rights Commissioner, Dr. Michelle Bachelet, to go to Xinjiang. It's a complicated thing. It involved a translation into Arabic that I sent to all the UN ambassadors from Mauritania to Indonesia, and it worked. And so she decided that she had to go there, issued a scathing report. The Chinese didn't like it at all, added a 131-page objection to it. And now we're waiting for some other things to happen. And to conclude, before you leave, all of you, before you leave the building, please go to the city councilor's office, turn on the lights, and read what I put on the bulletin board, the dry erase board this afternoon, because I think it will clarify a lot of what United Nations Santa Fe is all about. We need a better facility. I've been operating out of a business on 121 West San Francisco, and a drunk from either Evangelos or Matador or Desert Dogs drove up on the curb about 2 weeks ago and smashed into the facade. And it would be helpful if the city, the quorum of you would reaffirm that the facade should be restored to what it was historically. That building's been there since 1854, 1864, something like that. And do you have any questions?
Any questions, board members?
You have a
Or
question?
staff?
Time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Anyone else from the public wishing to comment on anything at this point?
Yes, Chair Stephanie Bonato would like to speak. I'm going
Okay.
to allow her to speak.
Stephanie, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Mine is very local as opposed to global. I wanted to just give you a little update on the Lucchese case from my point of view, and also to ask you for status review at 203 East Santa Fe Avenue. So Lucchese, the sign from 57 Old Santa Fe Trail, was removed from the board. You were supposed to have a recommendation. However, according to what I thought I heard Ms. Flamboy say, was that we could actually recommend height exceptions, but design exceptions. I mean, you could approve height exceptions, but recommend design exceptions. But they took it away anyway, and it went to the Board of Adjustment. And there, and Member Bienvenu and myself brought up nonconformity of the sign at the meeting. And only 2 out of 4 members voted for it. So again, didn't have a quorum. So the appeal was withdrawn. It was sent to Board of Adjustment. And then there, all they talked about was that it was a less non-conforming sign than either of the 2 previous non-conforming signs. And nobody wanted to read for 1452A6, third sentence, only the third sentence in, which actually said structures other than buildings, including signs that don't meet architectural standards or sign standards, are considered non-conforming. And a non-conforming signs cannot be altered or renewed. They can only be removed. I don't know why your staff did not actually bring that to your attention or bring that to the Board of Adjustment's attention. And when the Board of Adjustment heard it, they were told there was really only a height exception, which the BOA should grant. They didn't really have anything to do with design, even though letter sizing and square footage of the sign was higher. This case has been a travesty, as far as I can tell, and a total waste of time. Because again, that ordinance is very clear, it's on point, and it should have been, your attention should have been brought to it, as should have been the BOA. And that is still, as far as I understand, under discussion, because we actually had a city attorney say that section had nothing to do with signs. Now, in terms of 203 East Santa Fe Avenue, it's one of those ones where, maybe you should really, I don't know, feel badly about it. You agreed that on this a significant building that they could make a second addition onto a primary facade, the same primary facade that had been added onto by the oil and gas lobbyists when they had it. And this was done because maybe in the future, they might need a bathroom for somebody who's disabled. And again, I don't think future hardship is part of the ordinance. And again, aging in place, everybody is aging in place. It can't be a hardship. It's just a human condition. But really what has happened is we have two additions that are white-sided additions. My understanding is that second addition was supposed to be more in keeping with the brick building. And now we have maybe 8 foot of the primary facade on that side showing. We have two white-sided additions that go very well together. About the only difference is the pediment over the window, but they absolutely don't go with the rest of the building. And really that side, as far as I can see, is no longer a primary facade. I'm asking, as it should have been done before, that you bring this back for status review and that you consider making it a contributing building with all the other 3 remaining facades still being primary. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anything under staff communications? Heather.
Thank you, Chair Rios. We are still working on the proposed additions and amendments to the code regarding exceptions. And so we will be getting that to you next time. I had promised it this time. So there were some additional refinements that and discussion that we had regarding just the mechanics of doing so. And then the criteria, because the criteria are important to consider, as this, an exception is something that is unique and demands thoughtful consideration like the board has been doing, but we want to make sure the code reflects that as well. And so that will be next time. And like Stephanie Bidonanto mentioned, that Lucchese sign did go to the Board of Adjustment this past week. And the applicant may have confused things a little bit because the sign is within code. The only thing that the proposed sign, the only thing that is not within code is the height. So the sign of size will actually be reducing. I think the applicant confused some things. So it'll be about 50% of the size of the sign that's out there today. And of course, as a non-conforming sign, it's going to be removed. And the Board of Adjustment approved the extra height for the sign that will be conforming to code. And that'll be it.
We will move on to old business. Under old business, we have one case, and that is Heather's case. And I will ask speakers to limit your comments to 2 minutes. And who's going to help me on this, on the 2-minute limit? Melissa, Heather, Melissa, thank you. If you'll just raise your hand when it's 2 minutes, thank you. Heather, you have the floor.
Thank you. IT, if we can get the PowerPoint up, please. That might be, don't know how this was not attached. Sorry. All right, thank you. Sorry for the delay. PowerPoint isn't showing. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's in. Oh. Maybe it was not in mode.
It just had to.
Yes, yes, your magic. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chair Rios, members of the board. I'm presenting a proposed addition to the south elevation and addition to the west elevation at 513 Canyon Road. This case was previously heard and the board provided some feedback to the applicant. The site is located just to the east of Delgado Street on Canyon Road on the north side of Canyon Road. And it currently has a gallery and some other businesses in there, all related to the Morningstar Gallery. And the applicant is requesting an addition at north west corner of the property that you can see here, the square there where there's a tree, and then also an addition of and a portal. So with reference to what was seen previously, the board went over the drawings and the concerns were with the portal being too similar to the historic portal. So this is a design that was brought to you previously, and it illustrates sort of the slope, the decorative feature there at the base of the portal. And so the board suggested a reduction in the massing of the portal and the scale to maintain the prominence of the historic portal, let it stand out there. That first picture was that historic portal. And then an adjustment of massing both in plan and style. So the applicant made an amendment or adjustment. So this is what it looks like today. These are the drawings that show the existing conditions. And you can see over there on the right-hand side of the drawing, the historic portal, which primarily faces to the interior of the site. But then of course it has a prominent view from 513 East Alameda. So this is a request for an expansion of a kitchen, bathroom addition on the south elevation, the portal on the south elevation as well, which that might be incorrect. So my apologies. I'll go over the slide got mixed up. I'm sorry. So you can see on the floor plans, the existing and the proposed. So the existing has several different rooms, which will be expanded. So this is a yard wall here that exists on the site, expanded to this area as well. So and there right now, there's no portal in that south elevation, but there will be. And this is the product of the discussion that you all had last time. And so the portal is smaller in scale. The windows, the large windows that exist today will be reduced in size, and there will be a French door placed underneath the portal. And the windows that are proposed are similar in scale to the existing building as it is. And these are the renderings illustrating the existing condition as well as, so from the north as well as view to northeast, as well as with the change of the portal. So you can see on the bottom series of drawings, the portal there that's being proposed. So staff finds all criteria have been met and recommends approval, but there is a condition of approval, and that is the Board of Adjustment needs to review the west addition for a variance for a setback requirement. This is sort of the odd thing that happens in historic districts is, you know, zoning is not one size fits all. And in the RC8 zone district that requires a 5-foot setback. So the applicant understands this is at risk. And if that that variance is not approved, then they would have to come back to the H board for an updated design as per that setback requirement. So that's the condition of approval.
Thank you, Heather. Board members, any clarification questions?
Madam Chair, just a quick question about that last point, Heather. So what we're seeing on the drawings is as if the exception or the Board of Adjustment would grant an exception for the setback.
Chair Rios, Board Member Guida, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Will the applicant please come forward and get sworn in? And it's Gayla Bechtel.
Okay, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Gayla Bechtel, 320 Aztec Street. Good evening. Heather has done such a lovely job of presenting my case. I'm not really sure I have anything to add other than I did bring some books with examples of carvings that I'm hoping that we'll do on the beams and the corbels in perhaps the columns. And so that's my only addition really, is that we would like to do sort of traditional carvings on the wood.
Are you going to show those to us
Well,
or hand them out or? Oh, you have lots of them, it
Well, just-
appears.
so where the yellow markers are is what I'm suggesting. And they're very familiar to you, but I wanted to make sure I brought them to you.
Thank you. They're lovely.
Is the overhead working? Is the overhead working? I'm just wondering if we could share these with the public. Yeah.
Especially something like this. It has a lot of detail. That'll be
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you.
And can you transfer to the overhead, please?
Oh, there you go. So it's very traditional carving that's done mostly by John Gameem's, his interpretation or synthesis of Spanish colonial woodwork in Spanish colonial churches. That's where I'm headed with this.
Thank you, Gayla.
Madam Chair, a question for the applicant.
Yes.
So Gayla, the new portal,
Mhm.
the corners are wood posts.
Yes, wood post. I am hoping to do a river rock foundation, much like the river rock walls that we already have on site. It probably won't be exactly the size of gravel that it has. This one that's showing now on the overhead is more rustic,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering if that might be more appropriate as a foil to the
Just ask him to tell Ben. Oh, Ben's coming around. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
as a foil to the more refined nature of the original portal.
I think I would agree with that. You know, the corbels look just a little small in the elevation, in your elevation.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great suggestion.
We could certainly work on them. So,
Gayla, what is the depth of that portal?
I think it's 10 feet. Is it 10 feet? It's like 10 by 10 approximately.
Board members, any other questions for Gayla? Anyone from the audience wishing to comment on this project? No one from the audience? Anyone on Zoom wishing to comment?
Chair, there are no hands up.
Thank you. If there is nothing further to discuss, I will entertain a motion, please. Know that the board had directed the applicant to preserve and differentiate in this particular project. And it appears by the board members not asking questions that has been achieved.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Member Guida,
In case 2022-006059 HDRB 513 Canyon Road, I move that the board approve the project as submitted.
Aguilar Madrano seconds.
roll call vote, please.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Gayla.
you all.
We will move on to new business, and we have 5 cases under new business, and the first one is located at 805 Apodaca Hill. Is the applicant here? The applicant is here, and this is Angela's case. Angela, present your case, please.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. So then I would disconnect. Thank you. Oh, this is where it is. Gotcha. It's groove. Oh. And then my HDRB slides. 805. Correct. Thank you.
Here he comes.
I think we're good. Oh, it's not projected.
Yeah.
Thanks for your patience. Apologize for the technical delays. Case 2022-006106 HDRB is at 805 Apodaca Hill. Property.
Yeah.
I can go ahead and narrate a little. The background. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So 805 Apodaca Hill is a 1,300 approximately square foot, 2-story residence built in the 1960s. Thank you. The building is listed as non-contributing to the downtown and East Side Historic District. So as you're looking at the multi faced get there. Is the appearance of the house as you drive up from Apodaca Hill. See at the top of the hill to the left. So that's a two-story non-conforming structure. It was built sometime in the 1960s. There's not a historic survey for this address, but it has been identified in previous files as non-contributing and reiterated in a 2015 board case. There were alterations proposed before to bring the windows into compliance with the 3 feet to the corner rule, as well as divided lights. And that work had been done. This new case, also in that case, second floor windows were moved, and an east elevation rear stained glass window was removed and infilled with a stucco wall. The applicant, let's see, I'll just orient you a little with the slides first. So that's the front of the house, the approach from Apodaca Hill, set off from the street towards the east. This to the top right is the rear. And then in the middle on your left is the southwest side of the structure where an addition is proposed. And this is a nice schematic showing those angles to those facades and elevations. It's got a lot of facades. So for a site plan, like I said, you approach Apodaca Hill and the house is approached this way, and that's the front. And where you see red are proposed additions, a small portal, new portal there on the northwest corner, a rear portal on the east, also in red, and then in addition to the southwest elevation in the large red box. Go back to this. Okay. So you have the west elevation here and the proposed west elevation. The addition, this is the addition of the guest house, and it calls for an additional 680 square foot, 1-story guest house. And it will be split level as the site climbs from west to east. The tallest proposed height is 13 feet 4 inches at its northeast corner, and the heights of the remaining corners vary between 8 feet 4 inches at the southwest corner to 11 feet at the northwest corner. Southwest corner earlier, pardon me, northwest corner is 11 feet. The proposed heights comply with the height standards as they are under the existing second-story height at 19 feet 8 inches. The proposed addition features multiple stepped masses, and staff worked with the applicant to soften the corners to more closely comply with the downtown and east side district standards, recent Santa Fe style. The applicant proposes black divided light, aluminum clad doors and windows. The stucco proposed is suede. The existing house stucco color is desert rose, and they are close in color. Moving to the north elevation, on the main house, the proposal is to add 418 square feet of a portal to the rear elevation. And this proposed portal will be constructed with black steel columns and rafters with a rusted patina. And the roof will be 2/3 enclosed and 1/3 will be semi-enclosed with latia members. On the, moving around, well, I'm going to stay right here on the north elevation because it shows the additional portal at the entry. The 72 square foot portal is at the northern end of that west elevation. It will have a stucco column and a metal shed roof and rafters with a rusted patina finish. It's this right here. This is the existing second story. And so on the, let's see. The proposal calls for replacing windows on the second story. The new windows will be flagstone in color to match existing. And the applicant proposes to add a stucco wall to screen the existing roof mounted. It's right there, the mini splits that are on top that were built without they were added without a permit. And they are coming back to add a buffering short wall for that. That'll be lower than the existing parapet height. And the proposal calls for a 6-foot interior yard wall with wood gate on the west elevation. And these are the proposed colors and finishes. Staff was at this, we were at the site today, as you observed, and staff recommends approval of the project with the conditions that the addition's corners be softened further to comply with the downtown and east side design standards, and that the addition's proposed entry yard wall at the south end of the west elevation be shortened to resemble a yard wall. With these conditions, staff finds that the application complies with 14-5.2D, the general design standards for all the historic districts, and section 14-5.2E, the downtown and east side district standards. With that, I stand for questions, and the applicant is here as well to flesh out his proposal further and to answer questions about his project.
Angela, we noted on the field trip that there is, on this house, there is a very simplistic porch on the south elevation. Can you give us a little bit of history on that porch, if you know it?
The existing, thank you for the chair. Thank you for the question, Chair Rios. Are you referring to the existing portal on the front of the house?
Yes.
Or actually, I'm not quite clear. There's one on the rear. Let me get back to the pictures here. See if one of these jumps out at you.
The porch I'm referring to is very different from the rest of the house that we saw today on the field trip.
The front door. So it's the southwest. Is it this one you're referring to on the west elevation, the front entry?
That's not looking familiar.
Down below here, it looks like it's a stone column, but it's actually been, it's a stucco column. That's right.
Angela, never mind. I'm thinking of a different case.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
no worries.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Question for Angela. Angela, you said you recommended reducing the height of the proposed yard wall. Are you referring to this entry wall for the guest house that's shown in the rendering on the middle right?
Member Guida, yes, I am. It's this that I'm circling right here. You can see.
Okay. I'm curious as to why you're making that recommendation. Is this out of conformance with the district standards?
In my opinion, it is. It does not meet the recent Santa Fe style standards. It's it's a freestanding building wall, like a facade that does not, it's not a room wall. It's not a yard wall. It's connected with an arch to the south elevation of the existing house. It's very unprecedented and it's not found often.
And perhaps why I like it so much.
Well,
But there's no, for yard wall, the allowable, it would meet the allowable height for a yard wall in this location.
it would meet allowable height for a yard wall in this location as it is, 20 feet set back into the property.
And if the board approved it tonight, it would not require an exception.
It would not require an exception for its height. However, it is not, it's not expressly a yard wall. That's the issue here. And it is a design issue with respect to the downtown and east side recent Santa Fe style standards.
Okay, so if it's not a yard wall, it's simply undefined. It's a building element.
It's a building element. Correct. Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? For Angela?
Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Berkeley would like to speak. Her hand is up.
Okay, please.
Hi, thank you. I had a question about the new steel portals that are being proposed. And I just wondered if you could comment upon how that fits with the Santa Fe style. I was just curious about your thinking on that.
Thank you, Member Berkeley, for your question. I've got the north elevation slides existing and proposed up, and it shows the proposed simplified steel portal in question. And it is, one of the considerations is that it is not publicly visible. First of all, it's a non-contributing house, but that it's in the rear and it is not visible. It is not characteristic of old or recent Santa Fe style. However, it does mimic the structure of outdoor such structures, sort of Ramada type structures.
Anything further, Member Berkeley?
No, thank you.
Any other questions for Angela, members? If not, the applicant should come forward and get sworn in.
I'll go ahead and swear you in. Okay, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. And please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Vahid Mujarab, 147 Gonzalez Road, number 12. Should I go ahead? I think the mic is right. Oh, sure. Madam Chair, member of the board, thank you for the opportunity for presenting our project to you. I'd like to first of all thank the staff. I know the city is very short staff and they have been very helpful throughout our project. So I'd like to thank all the staff. As Angela mentioned, this project has been modified a few times. It's a non-contributing building, and David Rash on the last edition mentioned that in the report. What we're trying to do on the main house is basically to match all the windows together. Right now we have mismatched windows. So when they came last time, which David Rash presented that project, was some of the windows were changed, some not. So this proposal, we're trying to unify the building, have a more comprehensive kind of look to it, so everything's matching together. The addition is it's going to be a small, it's an attached guest house for the client, has an elderly mother that's using the space. I'd like to address the exemptions that this staff is asking us to do for the project, because I think the drawings, it's a really multifaceted, multi-facade project. So looking at that may be a little bit confusing, but it's not a freestanding wall. There is a portal behind it that attaches that wall into the house. So there's no freestanding element in there. And the reason we created that wall, it's to create another courtyard, another step entry into the project. It's going to be beyond that wall. It's just going to be landscaped a little bit differently. And we're also providing a bench for people, to basically get rid of their shoes, and they can either bring it in or out. But it creates a little intimate space beyond the wall. And beyond the wall life in Santa Fe is very popular. It's just like we all kind of like have these privacy walls in the downtown area, and we have our oasis and a little bit of a privacy in those areas. Another point that I'd like to present is the structure itself sits 85 feet away from Apodaca. So when you are visiting the site, you're in the private driveway, you're going close to it. As a public view, you are always about 85 or more away from the project. So you don't perceive it as you driving into the private driveway and looking at the project. I don't know if the board is concerned about the steel column, but in the historic district, we have done steel column before. Your most recent project right on East Alameda, right across the park. I have a picture of them. They have all steel column. And they're in the downtown East Side Historic District. So, but theirs you can see it from the street, from the park, from the park you can, or from the East Alameda, you can look at the column, and I have the picture of those. But ours, it's not really visible, publicly visible. It's right behind the house, and there's really nobody except if you come into the house would be able to see them. They're not really publicly visible. So yeah, thank you for attaching me to your, but yeah, this is that wall that is in the corner that shows there's a roof structure that goes and connects back to the house. And the other side of it, we have a raised planter because the house really sits on the slope. As Angela mentioned, one corner of the house is only 8 feet high. We really pushing the finish floor, everything down. And that corner, we have a lot of grades that coming to the house. So we have a raised planter and those walls that actually work in combination of retaining the site and able us to really push the house down. So I would ask the board to reevaluate that exemptions that the city staff is asking for this project. As far as the corner goes, the corners are as soft as possible. We have detail of all the corners. We have, 2-inch insulation on the corner. We cutting the corner. There are detail on the corners. Really, everything is as smooth and soft as is possible. This is, again, not our first project in the historic districts. We are familiar with their desire of having a soft appearance, and this structure conforms. Any question from?
Thank you. Member Guida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Mosharraf, I really appreciate the drawing package you submitted, as well as the work that you did with staff, the back and forth on design. I know there's perhaps a multi-year project. I find the renderings in particular extremely convincing. Not only are they kind of beautifully executed, but they really do show the elements that you're proposing quite well. Oftentimes when we look at, just 2D drawings, it's difficult to kind of fully understand the massing that's being proposed. In my view, the guest house dramatically improves the property. So this is not a question of, is something compatible only. This to me, is really good design. This is something that adds something to the property. I think the balance or the differentiation between the two entries, a kind of main entry and a subordinate entry, I think is also very well executed. I like the tension between the kind of heavy front of the house and the kind of lighter rear portal. I think that, you're tying to an existing structure. It's not publicly visible. We've seen steel structures like this before in the historic districts. I'm in favor of the rear portal. The guest house itself, the massing of it reminds me a little bit of Irving Gill in Southern California, his work, which kind of traded very heavily in mass and often had these types of entry features, a thick wall that you pass through. I think that the entry experience for the guest house will be exceptionally nice. I agree with you that, this is not a freestanding yard wall. This is part of the architecture. It is backed up by the roof that covers the entry. We see that very clearly in the renderings, and I think it's really, really artfully done. So I think overall, I'm quite in favor of everything that's being proposed. It's really well presented. We even have construction details here. The only questions I have for you are, one, what do we understand the roofing material to be? Is it standing seam metal on the two entry porches?
Madam Chair, member of the board, thanks for your words first. I really appreciate it. The roof would be corrugated metal, rusted corrugated metal,
So we'll see a dark brown
dark brown.
weathered steel look. And that is the same as what's being proposed for the steel throughout?
Madam Chair, member of the board, we work with the staff at we're doing actually black patina on those, not paint, but the patina. So there will be variation in the finishes, but it would not be a paint. So it would be more rustic looking, more weathered looking black. Not similar to the wrought iron, but a little bit more variation in the colors and the texture.
Understood. And then my last question is what's the existing house color is shown as this desert rose. The proposed addition is not exactly the same color. It's this suede color. There's no proposal to restucco the main house, right? We're talking about these are close enough, and the two masses will have just a slightly different shade of stucco on them. The proposal.
Madam Chair, member of the board, you're correct. They were not going to restucco the house, but except areas which we have to modify the windows.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you let us know again what the difference is in the existing stucco and the new stucco? Because I was under the impression that the ordinance indicates that all buildings have to be of one color. Am I correct or not, Angela or Heather? Except under Portales, they can have a different color.
Thank you, Chair. The board speaks to earth tones and compatible, and that they should be the same. New additions should match existing. In the code, it says that the downtown and east side historic standards, design standards.
Thank you.
And the other option is that everything be consistent. So additions should relate to the main building. So if the applicant prefers to just make sure that it's consistent, the entire building is, then that is an option as well.
Thank you.
So Heather, you're suggesting that it's possible for the applicant to color match the existing stucco with the new
Yes.
addition? Okay.
That's correct.
So yes, sir. Is that understood?
So we came across this bridge on our previous project in Apodaca, which we proposed a two color. So when we applied for this application, we actually asked for exemption in our letter. So we asked for the exemption for two colors in our proposed letter.
But they are what, very, very similar in
They're
color?
similar, yes, correct, but they're not matching in the sense of 100% matching, but they're similar. But since on our previous Apodaca project, we came across the two color was not palatable. We had like accented a little bit of different color for our base, a little bit of darker. And at that time, we didn't ask for exemption. And the board decided not to give us those color variation. So in this, when we applied for this, we actually asked for the exemption.
I actually don't see that.
In our letter,
I don't see that in the presentation of this particular case. Angela, can you address that?
Sure, members of the board. I worked with the applicant on bringing those colors closer together. They were in contrast. And so I made the call that it did not require an exception to be two different colors because they were so close. And that's what he's referring to, because we worked on this
Oh.
back and forth extensively to get it here tonight. So it's why it's not in your, it wasn't advertised as an exception.
Thank you for the explanation. Yes, Member Aguilar Medrano.
Hello. First, I have a question. In our packet, it mentioned that since 2015, it appeared that some additional renovations took place on the house that didn't come before the board. And I'm wondering if you can just speak to what those changes were, perhaps in the photographs that we looked at tonight. Angela, do you recall from looking at those 2015?
So those photographs are in your packet in the previous case that I referred to earlier. There are, so the 2015 case that brought the house up into compliance with 3 feet to the corners as well as the divided lights. There are existing photographs that show the house in a differently from what it looks like today
Okay,
that are not described in that case,
okay.
but are from that photographic evidence.
So on to the comments. So my comments tonight, I just want to point out, they do not mean that I don't like the design because I think there are many elements of this design that are quite nice. And if this house were in the historic transition zone, for instance, I think my comments would actually be very few. But I have to look at this, I think, with the filter of the fact that it is in the East Side Historic District, which, as you know, is our most restrictive. I tend to agree with staff's observation about the architectural wall that we've all been discussing. It is on the new addition. The existing house is the Spanish Pueblo Revival style, and I don't think that's something we typically come across. I also had not caught that there was a portal on the other side of that wall, which I do think, I think that helps cite it to the building a little bit better. So I still have some concerns about that element. Also some concerns about the steel portals, just given that it's on the historic east side, and that it also has the corrugated metal on top. Same concerns about the different colors of stucco. Mostly my concern is that it's not going to look intentional. I feel like it's going to look like the existing building that it was tried to match, and it wasn't. And then this isn't something that we've talked about this evening yet, but the windows on the new proposal are also a different color than the existing structure. The proposed windows are black. The existing structure is a flagstone kind of beige color. And then ideally, if possible, we'd always love to see true divided light windows if that's something that'd be possible. And I know you'd mentioned that one of the goals was to make all of the windows on the existing house and the addition cohesive. I did notice that the existing windows that you are matching only have muntins on the interior. The packet did say that the new windows would have muntins on both the interior and exterior. So I was wondering if the existing windows were perhaps going to be renovated to also add the muntin to the exterior. So I think I'll let my other board member speak, perhaps if she has any comments, but those are my observations at this time. Thank you.
Applicant, do you have any comments in reference to Member Aguilar Medrano's comments? Please address
Yes, Madam
them.
Chair. Madam Chair, member of the board. The two colors, the differentiation between the color was done intentionally to break the mass down. We have a separate entry for the guest house. We have a separate entry for the main house. We wanted to appear almost like a two structure that they're very similar, but they are separated. So instead of creating a huge mass of the building with this addition, I think the colors differentiation and the entrance help to break down the mass of the building, of this one-story building versus the two-story building. As far as the steel goes, the steel columns are very much in the east side. I can give you many pictures with corrugated metal of the structure that has been recently approved or existing approved on the east side. So it's not something that's very unusual. What we are proposing for the new windows for the structure, which we have the cut sheet of it, it has a mountain for the outside and inside. There is really no true divided light. These days, a manufacturer, they don't build true divided light. True divided light means that every pane of the glass is separate from the other piece. And you cannot, you have to be custom made. No window manufacturer make those because they're very energy inefficient for the occupant and for the building. So these are insulated, but they appear to be as divided light on the inside and the outside. The new ones that we are adding to the house would conform. We are not proposing of changing anything on the inside, on the existing one as it was approved in 2015 through the H board. And again, for the wall, it's a part, it's just a vocabulary that I understand. The H board can look at it subjectively and say, I don't like it, which I guess it's your provocative, but it's not, it's something very unfamiliar on the east side.
Member Aguilar Beltran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One other question I forgot. When we were on our site visit today, we noticed that there weren't any height poles, which is my understanding that those are required prior to this hearing tonight. So maybe staff can speak to what are the next steps in that, unless none of us saw it, unless we missed them. I'm not sure if the applicant also wants to speak to that. Sure. Okay.
Yes, let's send you the slide. Madam Chair, member of the board, it was a really short time for us to get the surveyors on the site, and we got them on the site for the Monday. It was a miscommunication that, they didn't put the story pole. The story pole went up this afternoon, and we sent all the pictures to Angela. So all the story poles are up, but it was a miscommunication. And we had like 3 days to get them up. And these days with COVID and a lot of the restrictions that we have, was not, we pulled a miracle to get our surveyors out there to put those markers out there.
The addition is not going to be any taller than 13 feet, is that correct?
Well, I looked at one of the stakes out there today and it said 14, but I want to respond to this dialogue is that this is part of all applications is that construction with new heights requires story poles. It's been standard practice. And when we were out there today, his contractor had put up stakes, but not height poles. And so I communicated with the applicant today and they had been put up incorrectly. And so then this afternoon, they went and put up the poles that show the massing. And I requested he bring slides of that. He sent them to me late this afternoon. So as staff, you can review the project as you've seen it. You did not see the simulated massing is part of cases. So it's up to you. If you feel you need to see those, the applicant can provide those. I guess it could be postponed for the next meeting so that you all go to the site and see it, but that's where that's set. And yeah, I mean, I got them at 4:30 and they're in my office, but the application wasn't ready in this regard. So.
I don't know, for me, the applicant is adding really basically a small addition and not very tall. And I think we should proceed with the application.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
some additional comments. I think, where I was going with the stucco was a kind of similar concern to member Aguilar Medrano. In the course of the questions of the applicant, I did notice too that the windows, the new windows will not match the existing windows. And buildings evolve over time, understand that it would be, it could potentially be quite costly to do all of the windows at once, and that's not what's being proposed. But I am in favor of a design solution that somehow brings some coherence to the whole, as is suggested by these renderings, right? The renderings suggest a kind of same stucco color, if not window color. It also suggests that some new elements are on the old house as well as the new house. And so we have that coherence being established. I would strongly favor and perhaps recommend as a condition of approval that the stucco color be consistent, whether that means matching the existing house's stucco color, which I'm not a fan of, or restuccoing the main house to match the addition, or to an pre-approved color that's main house and new addition. I think this is the opportunity to get it right. The reason being is, that desert rose with white windows versus sand or suede with black windows. I'm concerned that the combination of the two elements on each structure will further differentiate them. And so, to me, old and new are kind of clearly established by some of the massing, certainly the windows and detailing. But I think there's got to be something stronger to kind of pull together all of the masses. And so I would really recommend a consistent approved stucco color. I think as to the question, I certainly understand Member Aguilar-Medrano's point about the East Side Historic District being more restrictive. I'm always frustrated as a designer that the district standards, because they are more prescriptive, preclude any design. We often get design results that are, letter of the law and are the kind of most basic responses. And it's staff's obligation to counsel applicants to explain what the district standards say. But I think it's exciting when something like this comes before us. I think it shows evolution over time, which is one of the objectives of our ordinance. I think that heterogeneity of districts, I think that buildings being of their place in time, all of these things are also parts of the code. And I'm strongly in favor of some kind of innovation and riffing on those district standards. That's all I have.
Did you indicate that the public visibility of this project is minimal? Either, both of you, actually.
I believe he did. And when we were there today, it's visible from you can see the whole house and the addition from public way.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, member of the board, again, as we mentioned, the Apodaca, which is a dead-end street, would, be about, our addition is about 85 feet away. You almost no way of seeing the backside of it from the public view. The entries are visible from the Apodaca. You have the notion of the building. I also agree with the board with the condition that the addition or to be one color consistent. So either they're matching the new addition with the new color, or the old building would match the new color, and those color would be conforming with the historic board district requirement.
Did I understand you correctly to indicate that the steel columns are on the back of the house and will not be publicly visible? Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay.
The front portal column is a stucco, and the other one doesn't have a column, it has a wall to support the roof.
Any further questions, board members? Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this project? Whether here or on Zoom?
Chair Rios, Stephanie Beninato would like to speak. Stephanie,
Okay,
you may-
Stephanie, you need to get sworn in.
Yes.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Beninato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I understand that this is a non-contributing building that's 85 feet back from the street. However, it is visible. My concern is not so much with the little walled-in sort of mudroom kind of idea going on there, but with the back port tall. It is very tall. It is as tall as the existing building, and it seems really disproportionate. Besides which, of course, it's metal. I totally disagree with Member Guida. It is the actual law that you are to be enforcing or applying, not the spirit of the law and not some design, mid 20th century, whatever you might want to call it, to this district. And again, I think that's something that if you want, you need to advocate for that at the council level, but not sit here and subjectively use standards that are not in the law. So again, if this building, even though non-contributing, needs to be new Santa Fe style, then I ask that that be done. And there can be very creative elements within windows and doors and portals, et cetera, So to say somehow that you're stifled, or the implication that you're stifled because you can't do this really modernistic design in a historic zone, I don't find convincing. And again, it's not in the law. And really, this sort of subjective, I like this, so let's do it anyway, is what gets all the city boards in trouble. And I'd have to say too, if Heather there, Miss Lamboy, said that there was no design elements, that the sign was really going to be 20 inches high and 20 square feet, that is the Lucchese sign, why did she sit there silently for about 30 minutes while
Madam Chair, this has nothing to do with the case at hand.
insisted that it was less
Madam
non.
Chair.
Thank you.
I hear you. Anyone else from the public wishing to comment on this particular case? No one else. I will, if board members have nothing further to say, I will entertain a motion. Unless Member Berkeley, did you have anything further?
No, thank you, Chair.
The motion is in order.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. Case 2022-006-106 HDRB 805 Apodaca Hill. I move that the board approve the project as submitted with the following recommendation, that the condition that the applicant propose to have the stucco color of the addition match the stucco color of the house, either by color matching the existing stucco or restuccoing the existing house with a pre-approved color for the district.
Is there a second to this motion? There is not a second to the motion, so the motion dies. I will entertain another motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In case number 2022-006-106 HDRB, I would move to postpone the case to a future date to be determined. And I will list the following as possible recommendations that the client could consider for resubmittal. As Member Guida pointed out, that the stucco of the existing structure and the proposed structure match, whether that be the existing color or the new color of suede. that the client reconsider the materials of the portals, to change them from steel to possibly wood. And I'm thinking that if that change were to happen, that I might feel differently enough about the wall, the walkthrough that we've all been discussing tonight. But if you also wanted to look at that per staff's recommendation, that would be welcome. And then regarding the windows, I think I'll leave it at that, Madam Chair, with those conditions. And just as a reminder, this doesn't mean you have to make those changes. You can appeal it, or you can come back with the exact same case if you want to. Those are.
Is there a second to this motion?
Berkeley seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida.
No.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. That means that, sir, that your case is postponed until, do we have a date certain, or do you just want to work with the applicant for a particular date?
Chair Rios, one question for the applicant. Would you be ready by January 24th with some drawings prepared? Probably January, the week before Wednesday, whatever that might be. Yes, okay, so January 24th then.
Okay, will you accept that, Member Aguilar Medrano?
Yes, Madam Chair.
And the roll call vote was taken. So we will see you again on January the 24th. Thank you, sir. Next case is located at 239 Johnson, and this is for a status review and primary facade designation. And it's also Angela's case.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. This case is before you. It's designated contributing, and as stated, it is for a status review here tonight with designation of primary facade, multiple as applicable. This is the main structure as you see from Chappelle Street, and then it fronts also Johnson Street, so it's oblong. It's a one-story, approximately 600 square foot, multi-use commercial building. It's at that southwest corner of Johnson and Chappelle Streets. The applicant commissioned a new historic building survey form, and according to that, its earliest portion dates to the 1880s and is a conglomeration of historical additions based on Sanborn maps from 1902, 1930, 1948, 1958. It's quite an interesting read in its story it tells. The earlier, it basically started in the vernacular manner, and it evolved as it appears today as mostly Pueblo Spanish revival style. The early front portions are brick, which matches the other territorial brick structures on Johnson Street. And the historic rear additions are constructed of adobe. It features a flat roof and metal-lined canales and a mix of 2/2 double-hung wood windows and with bullnose lintel detail and 4 feet by 3 feet metal casement windows with a fixed center pane. In recent years, metal bars have been added to all the windows. Let's see. I'm going to give you the floor plan. This is the facade diagram, and it shows the evolution of the footprint. You can see how it all came together and grew together. It currently offices houses. At one time, it was a nursing home and a restaurant and a bookstore. It has the head-end parking at the south end of the west facade, and a bookstore inhabits the south portion. In a 1996 board case, the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum had proposed to demolish the building for parking for its museum, but the case was later withdrawn. They found other arrangements, as we know. So the applicant requests review of the historic status and designation of its primary facade. Staff agrees that the historic status should be maintained contributing per 14-5.2C, the designation of significant and contributing structures. And that the west, number one, to have the facade diagram up here. This whole facade here is number one. Be designated, primary, and the south elevations, facades 2, 3, and 4 also be designated as primary facades. And that's this south facing, these 1, 2, and 3 facades, because that's also, it's greater than 4 feet, so it counts as its own facade. And with that, the reasoning being that they convey the original historic story, its integrity, and it's unified from its vernacular roots to its Pueblo Spanish revival styles, and it's retained its original windows and other historic materials. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Angela. Angela, again, would you tell us how old the building is?
Portions of it date to 1880s.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other clarification, Member Guida?
Which portions, Angela? Date to the 1880s?
So in the Hickpie, your packet. I don't know if I have I don't have the whole Hickpie up here. I have it in my packet. If you have in your packet.
Or any of the facades that you're recommending part of the 1880s?
Yes.
Which ones?
I believe the south one had a brick exterior first. And you're familiar with it. While I find that.
Sounds good.
We'll have to swear you in, Chris. And Angela, second question for me is, okay, from 1880s, and what is the most recent year of any kind of remodel or?
The middle portion, that's the pink, you see the pink?
Mhm.
That's either the original or it's the center part that's Adobe in the middle there.
And the year?
You asked what the oldest and the most recent.
Right. Mhm.
The most recent is the connecting piece between, you see the courtyard that's in the middle?
And
That
what's,
mass to the
what
right.
year is that?
If you just give me a moment, I'll pull up the Hickpie and
Okay.
I can give you exact answers.
Okay,
on
thanks,
all of that.
Angela.
Sure.
And maybe in the meantime, we can have Chris sworn in.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Christopher Purvis, 518 Old Santa Fe Trail.
Thank you, Chris. Do you agree or disagree with staff's recommendations?
Agree with staff's recommendation.
And do you have anything further to add?
Only in the fact that Angela's trying to dig through it is that there's like many portions of this building. Starting in the 1880s, there is brick. There's,
Mhm.
on the inside, we found some brick in some places, but sometimes there's brick with adobe right next to it. So I think that there's probably been added on to many times. And it even overhangs its lot on the east side a little bit, where somebody just kind of built.
Well, I believe there's
Overall, I
a-
agree, it's a contributing building.
Yeah.
And the south and the west are clearly the older. It just feels a little more solid portion of the building, but even the new stuff is old. So
And there's a lot of brick buildings to the right of that building. Matter of fact, the one brick building right next to it, I believe that's significant. And that's totally brick. And I believe they share a brick wall. Correct?
the mostly that brick wall of that building is in the courtyard. That little notched out where it says 6, 7, and 8.
Mm-hmm.
That's where most of that other building is, but it starts at right where 6 and 5 join, and then it goes back further back onto the other one. I'm trying to look what that would be. 8 going north, starting at the corner of 8 and going north.
Right.
Yes, it's And that brick building, I worked on the O'Keefe. The one next to the O'Keefe building, one's the restaurant now. It feels the same inside, but it's been all converted. It's obviously been through many iterations. But yes, there's a portion of that that I bet mimicked those other buildings. Because I think they started as residences in back when the army was here.
So Angela, if you don't find that exact date, I think Chris made the point that all portions of the building are historic. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Purvis? No questions? Anyone from the audience wishing to comment on this project? Anyone on Zoom?
Stephanie Beninatto would like to comment. I'm going to allow her to speak. May I mute?
Thank you, Stephanie Beninatto. I'm in favor of the status as contributing, and I agree with staff and the applicants' approval of it, of the south and west facade as being primary. It's a very interesting building, and I hope that whatever changes occur, that even those parts that are not considered primary facades the history of them will be retained. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one else? I will entertain a motion. Member Aguilar Medrano, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In case number 2022006211 HDRB, I move to maintain the structure status as contributing with the west facade number 1 and the south elevation facades number 2, 3, and 4 be designated as primary.
Rita will second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Member Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Angela. Next case is located at 793 Camino del Poniente. Is that applicant here? Okay. Applicant will be attending by Zoom as just stated by Ramon, and this is Ramon's case. We will hear from him.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, this is 793 Camino del Puente. It is located in the historic downtown East Side district. The background is kind of complicated. The original construction began in 1938 and has gone through many iterations since then. The applicant proposes to remove an existing storage shed that's non-historic, add 488 square feet of bathroom and closet and storage area to the north side, and a 663 square foot garage attached to the northeast corner. So there's the site plan. It's circled. The location is circled in red. Wrong way. These are the primary facades, which is the south and west elevations in the entry courtyard. This is the west elevation, and if you can see that red arrow in the upper left-hand corner, that's where the new garage would interact with the facade, with the western facade. Shows the shed that will be demolished, and that's the location of the proposed new garage. This is the view from Acequia Madre, the north elevation. This is the area of the closet addition. You can see the red lines kind of indicate the outline of the footprint of the building, proposed building. And again, this is looking to the west, and you can see again, the red lines kind of indicate the shape of the proposed addition. The site plan on the left is the existing site plan. And the proposed site plan is on the right. It's outlined in red with the proposed additions. And the floor plan shows the same. This primary facade diagram shows facades 1 and 2 are considered the primary elevations. Greatest image. Proposed existing and proposed south elevation. The garage is kind of is outlined in the red rectangle on the left on the lower diagram. And this is the west elevation, and again, you can see the garage outlined in red, existing and proposed. West elevation with the east elevation, again with the proposed new elevations outlined in red. You're looking at what would be the back of the garage and closet storage area addition. And the north elevation, again, with the proposed elevation changes outlined in red. So do we have our applicant on?
Yes,
good.
Will McDonald is on Zoom.
Okay. You have any
Let's see.
questions for me?
Yeah.
Oh, so let me give you our findings. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds that the application complies with section 14.5.2D, general design standards for all historic districts and the downtown and east side design standards. In your packets, you will see responses to the exception from the applicant. Staff agrees with items 1 and 2, however, does not find that all the exception criteria have been met for item 3 of the proposed project. And with that, I will take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any clarification questions, Member Aguilar Madrona?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ramon. Can you walk us through, or someone at city staff, the exception that the applicant is seeking? So it's 50% of the existing primary facade. So that is different than the square footage. On site, it was mentioned that that's a linear foot calculation. So it's the linear foot of a primary facade,
That's my understanding.
that the front face of this garage is
Correct.
greater than 50% of the linear feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Member Guida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Ramon. So I understand the 50 feet, or sorry, the 50%, exceeding the 50% of a primary facade, but the garage is not proposed to tie into a primary facade. The facade that's immediately adjacent to the garage door opening is not primary. Is that correct?
Correct. So we kind of looked at it like if you were looking at that south elevation, you would consider new addition as a portion of the primary facade.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon. Let's swear in Will McDonald.
One other
Oh,
thing.
yes, Heather.
Board Member Barclay would like to. speak.
Oh. Member Berkeley, you have the floor.
Thank you. I had a question, just for further clarification, please, from Ramon about why you don't agree with the third exception.
That exception regards hardship or undue burden on part of the applicant. And it doesn't, in staff's opinion, not having a garage is not an undue hardship.
Okay,
Thank
thank
Anything further, Member Berkeley?
you. No, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McDonald, please get sworn in.
Is he on? Okay, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Will McDonald, 488 Arroyo Tenorio, Santa Fe.
Will, what do you have to tell us about this project?
I think that Ramon described it pretty well. It is, it's a lovely house here in a, in this key area where you drive all around it on Acequia Madre and Abeta Street and Poniente, anytime you're in that neighborhood. So I think it's an important house. And it's been added on to in various ways over time, but I think the entry courtyard and those primary facades are well preserved, and that the house on a large lot, there's still that a lot of the fine qualities of this house remain, and the owners want to preserve those qualities. So that's I feel like the additions are reasonable without damaging the contributing part of the house. I think when Ramon was talking about the exception criteria, he said 3 when I think it's question 2 that refers to hardship, that the exception is required to prevent a hardship to the applicant or injury to the public welfare. And while we talk about these as findings of fact, there's a lot of opinion here. For someone with a large house not to have a garage, based on a particular reading of the code, I think that is a hardship. Without and that the granting of the exception would not damage the character of the house or the district or neighborhood. So those are my thoughts on that. But I'm open to discussion, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Will, can you tell us the height of the garage and the proposed room as in relation to the house, to the existing house?
Well, you can see in the west elevation that the garage is proposed to have 11'5" height on the backside. There's a gradual slope on the property south to north as it moves toward the Acequia naturally. And that garage is pretty much the same height as the main part of the house. The floor level's a little lower, so the parapet is, maybe 4 inches higher than the middle part of the west elevation, which is short at 10'2". And the addition at the back on the north, its high point is let me read my scale here. 10 foot 11. No, excuse me, 12'11" is the height of the at the north side, and again, that's the lowest part of the property. So the floor is floors go up and down inside the house, but at least in the bedroom, the existing finished floor is about 2 feet above the grade where the outside of that wall would be. But the answer is 12'11" there.
Thank you, board members. Other questions? Member Guida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will, and I see that a new gate is not required. This garage would be accessed not from Poniente Street, but from Abeta. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the gate exists there.
Right. And I guess my only concern, not that I'm a fan of carports or garages in the East Side Historic District. I think that, the addition, we're looking at 2 additions or 1 addition here? So 2 additions.
It's the bedroom, bathroom addition and the garage addition. So if you look at the floor plan, it is 2. They're not the same.
One thing I'm concerned about is that we get a long expanse of blank facade on the rear of the garage, the north elevation of the garage. I see, where we have a lot of visibility on Abeta Street, you give us the rotated volume, we see the garage door, we see the windows, so there's some architectural interest there. But on the rear of the house, or what really does face Acequia Madre, we have it's foreshortened in the elevations, but if we understand it from the plan, it's a pretty long blank facade. And I'm wondering if there is an opportunity to create some manner of architectural interest. I know there's screening there, I know there's a fence there, I know there's trees, but those may not be there one day. Is there anything we could do on that north facade?
Are you talking about adding some windows on the north of the garage, for example?
That could be one thing.
That we did add that window on the west, and I agree that when you look at that, particularly that you have just that one window in the bath closet storage addition, but then there's just a long blank there. So we could, there's not a lot of space to create any different levels in the facade of the garage. So really, I think it is a matter of creating an opening there that could be a window opening that would give it a little more character. And I believe we would be, I believe the owners would be amenable to that.
I think it would help. I think the possibility, and there may be a buttress detail that you could borrow from elsewhere in the house. I wouldn't want it to be contrived. I would think that a window opening would be the bare minimum, but I'd certainly like to see some measure of architectural interest on a street-facing facade. That's all.
Okay.
Anybody else? Member Berkeley? Maybe not. Anyone from the public? Yes, Heather.
Just one comment for the applicant, with reference to the exception that's being requested. The HDRB is a recommending body, not an approving body. And so this case will have to go to the city council for approval, review and approval. And so that involves one additional hearing in addition to this one.
Complications that occur, right? Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this particular project? No one?
Stephanie Beninatto would like to speak. You may unmute.
Thank you. Stephanie Beninatto. I feel that the facade that has the garage doors on it is overwhelmed by the garage. And in historic zone, I don't think garages are exactly historic. And I do agree too that on the other side, the north side, that it's a long blank facade and that it definitely changes the character of that side of the building. And also, at least at a minimum, if you're going to allow this kind of addition, that there needs to be some architectural relief. I think the applicant's argument that somehow if you have a large enough house or enough money to buy enough goods, that somehow it's a hardship then not to have adequate storage. And again, if you have a large house, it seems to me that you could find enough space in your house to have storage. And if we look at this kind of subjective, classist, socially relative justice or standards, depending on how much money, because it could be a hardship that your dog doesn't have a bed in the bedroom and you got to add on, or you need a walk-in closet, or who knows what. But again, you need to have standards that are the same, whether you have a big house or a little house, or whether you have a lot of money or you don't have a lot of money. And I just think that kind of argument not only is arbitrary and capricious, but really doesn't speak, I don't think, to the larger community's values. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this particular project? It appears not, so I will entertain a motion. Maker of the motion, please remember to address the exceptions, but this, as Heather indicated, this is going to go to the city council for review.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. Case 2022-006213 HDRB 793 Camino del Poniente. I recommend that the board recommend approval of the project, finding that the exception criteria have been met, and put the following conditions on approval, that the applicant revise the north elevation of the garage to include elements of architectural interest, either buttress or window or some other relief that is in keeping with historic district standard, with the East Side district standards, and submit them to staff for approval.
Is there a second? There is not a second to the motion, so it dies. I will entertain another motion. Member Aguilar Medrano.
In case number 2022-006213 HDRB at 793 Camino del Poniente, I move to approve items 1 and 2. And I find that my recommendation would be that the exception criteria for number 3, the addition of the garage, has not been met.
Therefore, you are not recommending that the garage be approved. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Correct, Madam Chair.
Is there a second to this motion? This motion dies as well. Member Berkeley, do you want to try a third motion?
No, I'm sorry. I don't really have the language for a third motion. I'm just wondering if we ought to have it come back another time with some new designs altogether.
Was that a motion or
I don't know. Was that a motion? Excuse me. Yes, that was a motion.
would you do it in the form of a recommendation for a motion, please?
In case 2022-006213-HDRB, I move that the applicant return with a different design for reconsideration at another date.
Would you repeat that last sentence, please?
That the applicant come back with a slightly different design for reconsideration at a different date.
Thank you. Is there a second to this motion?
Aguilar Medrano, second.
Roll call vote, please.
Madam Chair, just a
Yes.
point of discussion. I think in fairness to the applicant, the board needs to provide along with this motion, some additional direction for the design that they would like to see.
Member Berkeley, do you have specifics in reference to design, or some recommendations, some suggestions in reference to the design?
No,
Maybe
I'm
look-
sorry, I really don't have specific suggestions or recommendations other than that the garage, well, I believe that if they can find a way to fit a garage in there that fits the historic design standards and is not so obtrusive, I think that that might be something for them to, that would be something to consider.
Heather, thank you, Member Berkeley. Yes, Heather.
If I might offer a suggestion, one of the things, or a couple of things to think about, is there something that can go by way of not having an exception? And is there something that, there's the redesign as Board Member Berkeley pointed out to make it not as obtrusive. But if the garage were detached from the building, then the exception would go away because there would be a simple one-story addition on the north facade that could meet the criteria. And the garage would then be considered in of its own a separate building. So I don't know if the applicant has had the opportunity to study that, but that might help with a final decision by the board and not having to go to the city council.
Well, that certainly is an option that the applicant has. Do you have comments in reference to that, Member Berkeley?
Yeah, I might suggest that they try to go that route as just a separate building as an addition and not attached to the building.
Okay, and you still have a motion on the, we still have a motion on the floor to postpone the case for redesign. Also, I wanted to point it out, is there not, Ramon, there is a wall, correct, on that, on the second other side? This property is walled all the way around, correct?
A remnant of a historical low wall, but the Coyote fence runs along the north side, all along the acequia.
So, as Member Guida pointed out, to try to give the applicant a little bit of direction, and Member Berkeley thought that not attaching the garage to the house would do that and still have a postponement in this case to redesign. And so I'm going to call for a roll call vote.
Could I speak to a couple of issues here?
What do you have to say?
Ramon and I talked about the idea of separating the garage, but because that corner is confined by the property line, it's we might be able to separate the building by 13 inches, and with quite a bit of effort, and so that's problematic. I know that it makes the exception request go away. And what we would, if it's going to be postponed, is it possible to get at least a vote on the bathroom closet addition separate? And we could come back and look at the garage again, but it would serve us if we could get a portion of this approved tonight, if that would be amenable to the board.
I'm going to have to ask the maker of the motion, who was Member Berkeley, if she wants to have the room, excluding the garage, to go forward on this. I don't know what other members of the board, how they feel about this, or come back with a new design for everything. May I hear your opinions? Aguilar Medrano, member.
Madam Chair, if staff doesn't have an issue with that process, I would be fine approving the bathroom / closet addition and approving the demolition of the shed. A question, or I guess a clarification also would be, during our site visit, we talked about that it was a 2-car garage. And so regarding member Berkeley's concern, I'm wondering if it was detached, perhaps, if it went down to a 1-car garage, would that be feasible in terms of fitting it on the site? Just a suggestion for the motion.
Member Guida?
I'm in favor of approving the demolition of the outbuilding and the bathroom closet addition. Part of my motion, and it was part of Member Aguilar Madrano's
And
previous motion.
maker of the motion, Berkeley? Member,
Yes.
Are you in favor of approving the bathroom? That
Yes.
that portion of it, the proposed addition, excluding the garage?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you restate your motion, please?
Madam Chair,
We will not be-
may I suggest that she withdraw the previous motion and
Okay.
and do a new?
Yes, would you withdraw your motion previously stated and state a new motion?
Yes, I will withdraw my motion and, okay. I'm withdrawing that motion and I'm restating the motion for case 2022-006213-HGRB to approve the bathroom addition and the demolition of the shed, and to request that the applicant return with a new design for a detached garage, whether it's 1 car or 2 cars, is but that it's detached and less obtrusive than the current design.
Thank you. That's a much clearer motion. Is there a second to this motion?
Aguilar Madrano seconds.
And maybe we have a roll call vote. Oh, Heather has something to say.
Just one clarification, Chair Rios. So since this came in as one application package, the HDRB, if it's the pleasure of the board, will be approving a portion of that package. To come back with the garage will have to be a new and separate application. So there's no time constraint. So tonight, what's being approved, if that's the pleasure of the board, is the demolition of the storage building and the addition off of the bedroom. And then the applicant can come back soon, if they wish, with a revised design for the garage.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So may we go to a roll call vote, please?
Member Aguilar Madrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Vice
Yes.
Chair Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. And
And
we'll
I-
move next
And I
time.
appreciate the board working with me on this, and so that we can at least move forward with part of this. It really helps us. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll see you next time. Thank you, Ramon. We'll move on to the next case, which is located at 608.5 Camino de la Luz. This is also your case, Ramon?
That's correct. How do we do that? Okay, this is a non-contributing building in the downtown. There you go. This is a non-contributing building in downtown East Side Historic District. It's a renovation remodel. The exact outline of the proposed project is in your packet. There's about 11 items there, but the majority of it is replacement of windows, rebuilding portals, re-stucco job, and some site work. So let me give you some images here. This is the location of the building is circled in red in the middle of the site plan. It's off of Camino de la Luz at 608.5. This is the existing south elevation. This is the location that is going to be the rebuilt portal on the second floor and new site walls. This original building, this is the original casita that was probably done, I'm guessing, in the 30s. And then the two-story Pueblo Revival addition was done sometime in the 70s or 80s. The south elevation is the most visible. It's the other east, north, and west are not really prominent on the streetscape. So on the left is the east elevation. The right is the north elevation. That patio up there is going to get rebuilt. Here's the site plan. And these are mislabeled. The one on the right is the proposed, the one on the left is the existing. Floor plans. South elevation existing and proposed. The garage door goes away and gets replaced with a divided light windows. The windows proposed are aluminum bronze clad windows. The west elevation showing the elimination of one of the windows and then the new windows in this elevation. This is the east elevation showing the new windows and a new portal on the casita. And this is the north elevation showing that patio area, second deck that will be redone. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Ramon, board members? Member Aguilar Medrano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ramon. I'm not sure if this is something you can speak to quite yet, but if this case, let's say, were to come back for a status review, would your recommendation be that the front facade of the original casita be primary and contributing? Because there's no status on it currently, is that correct?
That's correct. And yes, I'm really enamored with that casita's historic windows on that south facade. And were this to come forward for a status review, I would recommend that that would be considered the primary facade.
Okay.
Should that happen.
Thank you, Ramon.
Councilmember Guida.
Just to be clear with staff, the casita is currently unstatused or it's non-contributing?
Non-contributing.
Okay, thank you.
So with that being said, can we move forward with this application? I'm asking board members and I'm asking staff, can this, if we're kind of calling for a status review,
If that is the pleasure of the board, is that a status review occur first, then you would not be able to move forward. If you decide not to do a status review, then you can move forward.
may I hear from board members?
Madam Chair, thank you. The reason I asked was from our site visit today, it appeared that the door, the screen, and the windows on that original casita were also original to the 1930s-ish. So because of that portion alone, I would be in favor of a status review, although I hate to delay an applicant's project. But for this casita, I would like to see one.
Any thoughts, Member Guida?
I understand Member Aguilar Medrano's point. I am not convinced that, that the board's time, the public's time and the staff's time in examining this case is necessary. I believe we have an obligation to move cases through to do so and apply the code. But this is not to me, this is not an important enough building to warrant that extra effort, which may or may not prove to be that this is a contributing building at all. I think that as a in-between step, we have the opportunity tonight in the design and in the making of the motion to recognize features of the casita that the board would like to see kept, and include that in an approval, perhaps, motion.
Member Berkeley, do you have any thoughts on this?
I would agree that we ought to move forward with this case and not delay it any further.
So, with that being said, I don't know, I kind of tend to agree with I don't vote, except in case of a tie-in. We have 3 people this evening constituting a quorum. So I wouldn't be voting, but in looking at this portion of the building, I do believe that it would merit a status review. And unfortunately, it was not, we didn't go down that path. That path should have been taken first and then gone forward. But it appears that 2 members of the board want to go forward on this. So we will hear from the applicant. If you'll get sworn in, please.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Antoine Khoury and my address is 31 Paseo Vista, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87548.
Yes, sir. Good evening. What do you have to tell us about this project?
When we did the site visit with Ramon, we did discover that there's a value to these windows.
Please speak right into that mic.
Oh, when we did the site visit with Ramon, we discovered that these windows and the existing door to the casita do have some values to them. And the idea was brought up that in the case that the board would like to see them maintained, if that's a possibility, and I approached the owners and they're willing to maintain these windows and this door as well. So we're open to the rest of the house. The main house, has a very not divided light windows and like a very thin aluminum windows. So we'd like to replace the rest of the house with the true divided light clad. And we are open to maintaining the south elevation windows of the casita and restoring them.
Thank you for that. Any questions for the applicant? Or comments in reference to the building?
Madam Chair, I have a question for staff on this.
Member Guida?
So for the 1970s or 80s portion of the house, a point or a discussion earlier this evening was to do with the application of the district standards and new work being in conformance with them. Is there an allowance for an unsupported or cantilevered portal that's in the East Side Historic District standards?
I'm going to let the applicant respond to that. The new portal will be supported by wood column posts.
Yeah, that's true. So we discovered also this cantilevered portal is structurally unstable right now. So we are proposing to add a cross beam across on the bottom and 3 posts. And those posts also will be duplicated on the second level as well.
I see. So we will get the appearance of a 2-story portal.
Correct.
Like we see at Casa Sena, perhaps.
Yeah, and you see that in the elevation here.
Okay, got it. And your proposal beyond on the original casita or the older casita, your proposal, you're allowing for the possibility if the board suggests it, maintaining the windows and the door, but the portal would be replaced.
Yeah, the the existing portal right now is really like just seemed like an afterthought, wasn't really part of the original building, was more like a lean on.
Mhm.
It's built like literally with 4x4 posts and 2x4, and it's sinking in one direction. So we'll be replacing it with a similar portal that we're proposing for the main house.
Okay. I also, I like a lot of as I look more closely at the drawings, I like a lot of the design changes here. This certainly not only brings the house more into district standards, but kind of makes what was obviously a very challenging massing make sense design wise. And so I'm appreciative of that, notably the raising of the parapet in the rear and capping it with a railing. Is the railing that we see above the parapet going to be the same as the railing for the second story portal in the front?
Correct. The railing that's on the north and the east, will be sitting on top of a short parapet, just so we can reduce some of that, give it a little bit more mass, as you said, as you're saying.
Good. Okay, so I think overall a very commendable design.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Member Berkeley, do you have anything to say in reference to this particular case
No,
at this time?
no, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this case? Anyone on Zoom?
Chair, yes, Stephanie Bedonato would like to speak, and she may talk, unmute.
Thank you. I like the design and where it's going. I think it's more harmonious with the older parts of the house. However, I am concerned that you're not going to do a status review because just saying that you're going to preserve something further on, in the future, somebody can come back and go, but it's a non-contributing house. And I believe that you were told, I can't remember if it was the assistant land use director or the city attorney who told you that if you didn't make it primary, that you couldn't really insist on windows being kept. And that was in a house recently. There were, I think, 3 sides that you decided were primary in that house. So I do have that concern. And then I also want to point out that just recently in this meeting and in a couple of other meetings, you have not been having a voting majority. And I will read to you the ordinance. That's 1-1-2, which are definitions of the city code. Voting majority means, given a quorum, and in your case, the lowest quorum is 4, a majority of those present, not voting, a majority of those present, unless otherwise specified by law or ordinance. So you always need 3 out of 4 to vote for something. And if you're allowing 2 to vote, I believe that there was a case that the former member Katz said the chair can vote to also create a tie, not just break a tie, or you don't have a successful motion if you only have 2 people voting for it. Again, I would urge you to think about a status review in order to preserve that particular facade.
Thank you.
I would also ask that you look at this definition.
Stephanie, thank you. Your 2 minutes are up. Appreciate your comments. And I think that Attorney Rubalid has in the past indicated something different than what you're stating.
I thank you, Chair Rios, for the opportunity to respond to this. I know this is an issue that's come up a couple of times, and I want the board to know that I've done research on this matter. I'm going to read just a little bit from Robert's Rules of Order to understand what the basic principle is. This is section 44:1. Basic requirement for approval of an action or choice by a deliberative assembly, except where a rule provides otherwise, is a majority vote. The majority means more than half. And when the term majority vote is used without qualification, as in the case of basic requirement, it means more than half of the votes cast by persons entitled to vote, excluding blanks or abstentions at a regularly or properly called meeting. And there's more analysis that voting requirements based on the number of members present, a majority of those present, 2/3 while possible, are generally undesirable, since an abstention in such cases has the same effect as a negative vote. Those bases deny members the right to maintain a neutral position by abstaining. Now, I know that in a resolution that was adopted by the city council that controls this board, which is resolution number 2009-20, adopted in 2009, the chair of this board cannot vote except to break a tie. That is, the chair of this board cannot vote to create a tie, which is a departure from Robert's Rules of Order. But there is a principle of statutory construction that also applies to city ordinances and the Santa Fe City Code, that a rule cannot be construed to defeat the purpose of the rule. And so if we follow Ms. Benedato's insistence that the chair be counted as an abstention because the chair doesn't vote, but yet is one of the members that counts as a majority in deciding whether or not a majority is voted to approve a project or not, then the chair, who is prohibited from voting to create a tie, is presumed to abstain and create a de facto no vote, which creates a tie by her failure to vote. And that is an illogical conclusion and would defeat the purpose of passing a rule that prohibits the chair from voting to create a tie. This is a matter that I've discussed with other attorneys at the city attorney's office, as well as my supervisor, and they are in agreement with me. So I believe in a situation like this, where there are 3 voting members and the chair is abstaining, a vote of 2 is a majority, which requires passage of the project.
Thank you for your explanation. With that being said, I will entertain a motion. There is nothing further to discuss.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Yes, sir.
So case 2022-006214 HDRB 608.5 Camino de la Luz. Move that the board approve the project as submitted with the following conditions: that on the south facade of the casita, that the existing windows and door be retained as part of the design. And the board notes that those historic elements have some importance.
Is there a second?
Aguilar Madrano will second with a friendly clarification, perhaps, that the screen door is also included.
Yes, accepted as friendly.
Thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Member Aguilar Madrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you so much.
Last case is located at 346 Hillside Avenue, and this is Heather's case. It's there.
All right, my name is Heather Lamboy, presenting 346 Hillside downtown, which is located in the downtown East Side Historic District. The request before you this evening is for an addition, or 2 additions, actually, one to the freestanding studio and one to the main residence on this property. You can see this residence is sort of unique and represents a unique history of Santa Fe in terms of this neighborhood. It was more Anglo-American related, and the architecture was different from what you find in the historic East Side. The board did review this case for status on December 13th and designated this as contributing. The primary facades would be, and you can't see from this picture very well, would be this south elevation, the portion of the east elevation with the fireplace, and the west elevation, which is confined to the historic home. I can further clarify that with some graphics and if you wish. So the site is located to the east of Paseo Peralta, the intersection with Hillside, and to the east of the park. It's outlined in white here. This refers to the primary facades that I was just describing. And so those elevations, so there's numbers 1, 2, and 3, those were designated by the board as primary back in December, on December 13th. The addition that the applicant is proposing is not to a primary facade, it's to the south elevation of the property. You can see here a picture of the south elevation, and this is the right expansion of the kitchen. I'm sorry, I messed up that other case, but this is an expansion of the kitchen by 182 square feet, a bathroom addition on that south elevation, and 494 square foot portal on the south elevation, as well as a deck. So the before and after floor plans are illustrated for you here, and with the deck there on the south side in sort of grayed out, as well as an illustration of the expansion of the studio. You will note that the studio will become attached. Right now, there's a wing wall that attaches to this, it was once a detached garage. And with the infill of the bathroom addition, these two buildings will actually be attached. This is a picture of the south elevation. Since this picture, the deck has been removed. That was the old historic deck. Well, not historic, but it was a deck that was on the property. It's not there currently. And east elevation of the studio, you can see that the portal there is somewhat detached. It's just barely detached. So that'll be removed. The studio will have an addition to the south of that, on that south elevation, and then a portal added as well. The elevations, this is an illustration of the south elevation, the before and the after. And as you can note, there will be the construction of an additional fireplace. The window pattern is not similar to the pattern that exists on the house. Though these windows do meet the downtown East Side Historic District standards, they are not of a comparable material or to the historic residence. Certainly the Historic District's ordinance does speak to unique features, and also it speaks to compatibility with primary residences, the historic residence. This is a picture of these are the elevations of the east side. So you can see the addition to the kitchen, which is for that boxy component there on the rear of the house. That is an addition already. And then the deck is illustrated, as well as beyond the changes to the studio. This is a rendering of the property, and you can see that the applicant is creating enclosed porch with the portal. Additionally, you can see that there's a cantilever, not exactly cantilevered, but sort of a more modern interpretation of the studio apartments, with the portal not being similar to what you would find in the downtown and east side, or not even similar to the front porch with the classical columns and the like. It is distinct. And once again, a rendering of that east elevation. The street elevation will not have as much of an impact because it is sort of all tucked behind that primary facade at the rear of the property. So the visibility is minimal in terms of the street. So with reference to the staff recommendation, staff finds that section 14-5.2 D2A has not been met, and the similar materials, architectural treatments, and styles of the addition to the historic residence. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions for Heather this time?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Heather, could you just expand upon that a little bit more? So there's the exception is being sought for what condition?
Chair Rios, Member Guida, there is not an exception per se.
Okay.
So the addition is less than 50% of the footprint. And the addition meets downtown and east side historic district standards. So, but with reference to it being related to the house, it is staff's opinion that it does not relate to the house, but the board might find different in this particular case.
Thank you.
Do we have the provision in the East Side Downtown Historic District that generally speaking, additions should be of their time or differentiate themselves from historic construction?
Chair Rios, Board Member Guido, we do have that provision, as said is correct.
Thank you.
Anything further? If not, applicant or applicants, please come forward and get sworn in.
You swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Martinez, P.O. Box 925, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Heather, would you mind, if I could give you some things that you can pull up? And then- From my proposal?
Your packet?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And then,
Absolutely.
we'll do some work from my back.
Okay, so this is from the staff report then. Okay, look at the staff report. Just one moment. Hearings. Just whenever somebody's.
I
Oh my
know.
God. Three already.
It's the first photograph.
The first, okay. So what you can do is just, I will put this at full screen.
It's in, there, right? Okay. And then I
So
can
you
just
can
go through,
You
right?
can scroll through,
Okay.
yes.
You
So
can-
there's the Higbee and then
God,
just
that's
keep on
gonna be-
scrolling up.
That's
So
gonna be a huge. Okay,
You want to go to the pages where your
Photographs, yeah.
photographs are?
I'm sorry. I wanted to show a photograph. As you recall, we had a status review meeting on this project. And it was determined that the front facade and the two facades were primary facades. And so so we didn't touch that. Thank you very much.
You're
That's
welcome.
great. Our proposal is not to this front facade, which is really beautiful and a beautiful part of the streetscape as well. We had the historic report done, the Higbee report, which shows that there was quite a bit of history on this beautiful house. And so our addition is not to the front of the house, but to the rear of the house. It's not minimally visible from the street. It's invisible from the street. It's not publicly visible at all. So we intend to make sure that the existing view from the street is unchanged. And I tried to show that in my you know what, Heather, I'm sorry. I wanted to show this elevation.
Oh, okay.
It's towards the end of my photographs, please.
Towards the end of the photographs.
Towards the end of the photographs, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
Okay.
And
Do you want me to take?
make
down
it
a little
smaller,
bit, a
yeah.
little bit smaller.
So it's this facade is unchanged. This is what we propose, is that not only is the house itself unchanged, but the walls which enclose the casita and the wall which encloses the kitchen addition would be unchanged. and would remain. All of our changes to the house, or all of our additions to the house, are behind those walls and not visible at all from the street. The existing additions standards for in the code in section 14 said additions shall have similar materials, architectural treatments and styles and features and design in details as the existing structure, but shall not duplicate those of the existing structure in a manner that will make the addition indistinguishable from the existing structure. Our addition is to take the elements of the house that exist, the stone walls, the stone bases, the same stucco color, the same white trim, and use those in ways that are compatible and I believe recent Santa Fe style, so that they do take into account the existing elements of the house, but that they are again completely publicly visible. Sorry, not publicly visible. The recent Santa Fe style sections, there is nothing in the section that precludes what we're trying to do. Most of it, recent Santa Fe style talks about publicly visible facades. Most of it, almost 2/3 of it talk about that. And otherwise it says about not being more than 2 stories, not being cantilevered, not being like 80% or not having the windows, or flat roofs should not have more than 30 inches overhang, things like that, that we are not proposing. So there's nothing on our proposal that has any need for any exception criteria at all. We propose this addition to make the house come down to the existing ground very nicely in the back of the house. That is where right now there is a huge drop off from the house. And so even from the kitchen, if you walked around the house, you saw that there's a big stairway in the kitchen addition down to the ground. It will be broken up with decks, and so that we more gently come down to the house. The casita cannot be a freestanding structure because structures have to have 10 feet between them or have to have no space between them. They cannot, the addition can be, the addition of the casita can be attached to the house, but it cannot be made less than 10 feet from the house. That's just fire regulations. Any structure has to be 10 feet and 10 feet away. And the existing casita does not meet those standards. And so that's why we have it touching the house. So I stand for any questions.
Richard, how would you characterize the addition to this house in terms of its architectural style?
I would recent Santa Fe style is how I would characterize it. I would have the same question about how we would characterize the existing house, the style of the existing house. It again was like a sort of an amalgam of a bungalow style and Santa Fe style house. And I think it's very beautiful. And one of the things that the Hickby report mentions is that the addition of the kitchen shows the sort of the additions over time. And that's part of what we're trying to do is we're not trying to make our addition in the back seem like it is a replication of the existing house, but it's done over time. I would say recent Santa Fe style.
And now we don't have anything on the screen.
Oh, it went off.
Yeah, it's just went up.
Member Aguilar Medrano has a comment or a question.
Question first, and then I'll comment. Can you give a brief description of the roof treatments on the, I believe the existing is some sort of, I don't, just, if you could just describe the existing. pitched
Existing roof
And then what appears as white in the renderings.
in the what? I'm sorry.
In your perspectives, in your renderings, the new portion that appears as white, if you could give a description of what material that is?
Oh, okay. You mean, okay, so there's a hip roof on the existing house and a flat roof on the existing casita. And so the white is just indicating the additions and the re-roofing of the existing. Is part of that white is the existing kitchen. So it doesn't mean that it would be a white roof. It's just indicating that it's a roof. And I wasn't showing the materials of the roof because it's not visible.
So is it stucco, the flat portions?
No, it's not. It's not stucco. It's roof.
Okay. So on to comments. I think we discussed last time what a special property this is and when we were designating the primary facades. And so I was surprised and a little disappointed, I think, to see the proposed changes to the back. I think Heather summarized the issues very well, and I'm in agreement with all of them. I don't think I could say them differently than you already did. So I'll just say that I agree with the issues you had. I think from the larger moves of the portal, even to the smaller portions, like the window patterning, even the railing is more contemporary. We're all in agreement that it doesn't have to mimic the original house, but to me, this looks like a completely different house. If I'm just looking at this back perspective, it feels like a completely different house to me than the front does. And I think the portal in the addition is really pushing the limits on the exception criteria. It's not technically cantilevered, but I think it's meant to give that impression. Heather, I think you summarized the issues very well. Thank you for that. And I'm in agreement with what you stated. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I politely disagree. I think that what's presented here is an exemplary addition and remodel to a house that was noted as contributing and facades designated. The board made very clear its intent to preserve the character of that original bungalow style house or craftsman / Santa Fe style house, and really not a style that we see too often in town here. And the applicant has done that. They have retained the entire presence of the house and all of the features that we deemed necessary to keep. I think that the proposed addition is subordinate to that house. And I think the style of the addition, beyond being allowed by the code, and I appreciate the applicant's reading of the code and reminding the board and the public of what it says, doesn't attempt to mimic, and it also doesn't attempt to cover up that existing structure that we said was so important. Recent Santa Fe style is allowed in this district. I don't think it should be excused only because it's not visible, publicly visible. This is to me, this is a great example of how to do an addition that's of its time and place and meets the needs of a contemporary owner, and also integrate not only with the existing structure, but keep it clear what's new and what's old, and integrate also very artfully with the project site in stepping down very gradually to the backyard. We don't have a lot of handrails or anything like that. I don't see any conflict between anything that's been designed in the back here, and the district standards, certainly what's allowed under new Santa Fe style. So I'm very pleased to see this, and I think it's exceptionally well done. You know, the point was made earlier this evening by a member of the public about the obligation of this board to only enforce the letter of the code. That's not true. I shudder to think what we would have in the districts if all design decisions were made by attorneys or by the code. This shows an application of the code, but is done so in a subjective way, one that incorporates good professional design sense, and an understanding of what we're attempting to do in the historic district and the values that are expressed in the code. So I'm a very strong supporter of this application as submitted.
Thank you, Margarita. Mr. Martinez, this elevation that we are seeing here, I'm seeing a wall that has one window that appears to be rather dominant to the elevation of the house. Can you tell us the proportion, the height of that wall to the height of the home?
Yes, yes, I can.
Sorry, keeps timing out.
The north side of that wall, half of that wall with the window is the actual wall of the kitchen. And we're just extending that wall, like 13 feet, I think, more. And so that's
So part of that is already existing.
already, half of it is already existing.
Okay,
And we're proposing that we make the wall only as tall as the existing wall. That's the kitchen wall. So it's much lower than the hipped roof that it is of the main house. So in this perspective, because you're right next to that wall, it looks like it's taller, but it's much
Yeah.
shorter than the house. I can let me just do this. Okay, see the wall on the right, on the left-hand side, which has the window?
yes.
It's the side of that wall. So that wall is, like you can see in this, is much shorter than the hip of the house. And I'm just extending that wall at its current height, no higher.
Thank you. And you did indicate that what you are proposing this evening is absolutely not visible from from any public way.
Absolutely not visible, yes, because it's behind the wall of the kitchen, which you see in this elevation, and behind the wall of the casita on the other side, which you see also in this elevation.
Thank you. Member Aguilar-Madrón?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add that I take no issue with the siting or the proposed massing of either of the additions. I think those are in proportion to the existing house and are done nicely. So my issues really pertain mostly to, the architectural treatments and the style. And then Heather, I had a question for you. We heard another case recently that had a lot of discussion about window patterning. And in that case, I believe we also had the discussion about a style exception because it was some of the staff and board members felt that the window patterning even had the ability, in addition to some other things, to require a style exception. Can you give your opinion on that and whether you think that applies to this case at all as well?
Chair Rios, Commissioner Aguilar-Medrano, Board Member Aguilar-Medrano, the interpretation of what is recent Santa Fe style is what's at task here. So you're correct in pointing out that the fenestration is not like the fenestration of the historic building. And so the board needs to determine whether if it's dissimilar enough that it doesn't meet that one criterion that we keep referencing. Or, you know, are there suggestions as to some of the components of the historic house that can be picked up, but not be exactly the same? So that's typically what the overall intent of that code section is that it needs to be distinguished. It needs to show the evolution of a house by all means, but certainly that is a value judgment that the board has the right to make.
And in your correspondence with the applicant, did you have any ideas of what changes could take place to bring it closer to what you were hoping to see in terms of accepting it as is?
That was for me.
Yes, I could repeat it if necessary.
So with reference to making those changes, like the portal and the south elevation of the studio is very modern. I do like the architecture, but that's not my role here. My role is to review the code. And, you know, I do want to compliment the architect. If this was in a different place, I think that would be a great idea. But this particular house, that is a more modern design and picking up some elements from the historic bungalow style building, like with what you would have with sleeping porches and the like that you typically find. But sort of a modern interpretation would be something, if I were an applicant, that I would do and what I would look for as staff.
Thank you, Heather.
Member Berkeley, do you have anything to say in reference to this project?
Yeah, I guess the comment that I would make is that I actually agree with both sides. On the one hand, 100% appreciate all of the work that the architect did in completely complying with all the style regulations, that you cannot see a thing from the street, etc. And really met the needs of the owner in terms of expanding some space. At the same time, it is striking, really striking how different it looks. It's like member Aguilar Medrano commented, it's like two different houses. So I'm really kind of torn between the two. I think it's a hard call. I think for me, the thing that really struck me was actually the windows, probably most of all, are so different from the rest of the style of the house. And I'm not really sure what the thinking was there, aside from it not replicating what the existing windows look like, what the kind of and maybe the architect can speak to this, what the impetus was for creating this style of window in particular in the back.
Thank you for your comments. Richard?
Yes, you know, what we did was we took off of the narrow windows on either side of the front facade. You can see those in my illustration, and so we were doing a sort of a variation of those kind of narrow windows, and using them in a way to emphasize the new fireplace, the new stone-clad fireplace in the back, and things like that. So that's where that design came from. The recent Santa Fe style does require that they have a 30-inch maximum for the pieces of glass. And so we were very conscious to make sure that we divided those in a way that maintained that.
Can you show us the elevation of the proposal again?
The rendering?
Yeah, would you take us to that?
Yes. Just a second. I have to. See the two windows on either side of the fireplace? Those are the windows. And then there's another one on the other side that is at the end of the bathroom, the inside bathroom. And then that sort of pattern is replicated on the doors under the portals that come out of the kitchen and the guest house, the casita.
I am going to ask for public comment, and it appears that there's a gentleman walking toward the podium.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sean Evans, 1121 North Luna Circle. Curious members of the board, I'm speaking in support of this project. I agree very much with what Member Guida said. I think, you know, this is really one of the most exemplary cases that I've seen in historic districts where we have a house that really doesn't comply with, you know, the original historic house, which we've all said is so beautiful, is not of Santa Fe style. And this is one of the odd things about design in this town. And so I think it's rather peculiar that we would then require an addition to be done in a Santa Fe style or something that the house does not purport to have. I'm particularly concerned about over-regulating private backyards that aren't visible to the public. And I think given these two things, I think that would certainly sway me to suggest that this is a very reasonable approach and one that's quite attractive. Good job, Richard.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wishing to comment? Yes.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Martha Davis, 346 Hillside Avenue, Santa Fe.
You are the owner of the home.
I am, yes, yes. Just want to thank everyone for their time and efforts. Very much appreciated and all the feedback. I am very much supportive of making sure that the architecture and the character of Santa Fe remain as wonderful and spectacular and unique as it is. I am very committed to doing that in this property as well. It's a marvelous house with fantastic character. And I worked with Richard very hard to make sure that we maintain materials and treatments with evolving the house and very much keeping it behind the back so that it's not visible. And I just wanted to make one specific comment about the windows and that we did pick up the narrow elements in the front. And the south facing is the only facing that really gets light. So we wanted to try to have as much light as we could, but be discreet in the treatment. And also privacy. So that's all I wanted to contribute. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Richard, what is the square footage of the proposal? And tell us the square footage of the existing home.
While he's looking that up, just want to let you know, we have two folks on Zoom that would like to speak.
Okay. While he's doing that, oh, maybe he has the answer right away.
The existing square footage of the home is 1,285 square feet. And the casita is 230 square feet with portals of 70, 40, about 208 square feet. And the additions that we're proposing are the additions are 449 square feet for the main house, and the casita, the addition is 230 square feet.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from the other people from the public. And who might they be?
Yes, Chair, I am going to unmute Sybil Mueller. You may speak, unmute yourself and speak, and please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Sybil Mueller. My address is 130 Candelario Street.
Thank you. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Madam Chair. Thank you for giving me 2 minutes. I am in favor of the applicant's addition, and I find that the character, I really like that the character of the contributing facades remain unchanged, and that the addition is distinguishedly different from what the existing facade is. I find it very beautiful that he is taking the material and juxtapose it to a nice solution that is contemporary and at the same time also matches and adds to the existing house. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next person.
Yes. Stephanie Benenato, you may unmute.
Thank you. Stephanie Benenato. I'm in agreement with member Aguilar Medrano. I don't think, and also, excuse me, your last name's not coming to me, the other member with the last name, I'm sorry, Berkeley, that there are elements in the addition that are not harmonious, that are very contemporary, and people have said that contemporary does not mean modern Santa Fe style. And I would point out certain things like, first of all, we don't even really know what the roof's going to be made out of. That was never answered. But if you look at the column holding up the portal by the casita, you see that it's just kind of a freestanding, not really round, not square kind of thing that is very contemporary. I mean, the design is very nice. I'm not saying, as was said, if it was someplace else, it would be great, but it happens to be here. And I do think that it's a little too contemporary. Just because you have the same color or the same this or the same that doesn't mean that it actually is harmonious. It just means that you're imitating certain small design elements without actually making it harmonious. And I also want to address Mr. Rubalid's 2009-20 resolution that only spoke to the chair not voting to create a tie. It doesn't go and see Robert's Rules of Order. So voting majority, which requires a majority of the members present, not the voting members present, the members present means that 3 out of 4 have to vote in order for the vote to actually be valid. We don't have the chair abstaining all the time. Members abstain when either they feel like they don't have enough information, somehow they don't want to go on the record, or
Thank you, Stephanie. Your 2 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to comment on this particular case? Board members, if you have nothing further to say, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Please do.
In case 2022-006237 HDRB, 346 Hillside Avenue, I move that the board approve the application as submitted.
Is there a second to this motion?
Berkeley is going to second it.
Berkeley seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
No.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
We have finished with the cases for this evening. We will go on to discussion items. Anything under discussion?
Chair, staff has no discussion item this time.
Thank you. Matters from the board? Anybody? Board members, anything to discuss? It appears not.
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that the appeal with respect to the project at 330 Don Cabero Place. This was denial of the reconstruction of a Latia topper on a stucco yard wall
Oh, yeah.
in the Don Gaspar area historic district. That is set for an appeal hearing before the governing body tomorrow night. That appeal was brought by the homeowners who challenged the decision of the board not to permit them to reconstruct the stucco, the Coyote Latia extension to that stucco yard wall. My boss does tell me, though, that because of the length of tomorrow night's agenda before the governing body, that we may not get to it, that they have to continue a discussion about a zoning change on old Pecos Trail that has consumed a lot of time. So it is on the agenda. Whether or not we actually get to that appeal tomorrow night, we're not sure that's going to happen.
Thank you for keeping us informed on all the different appeals. Thank you.
And I have one other matter to bring to the board, and that is that with respect to the approval in 2021 of the cell tower at St. John's College, which is 1160 Camino de Cruz Blanca. The neighborhood and Mr. Stephen Durkovich, who was an attorney as well as an aggrieved neighbor in that area, the Upper Camino de Cruz Blanca neighborhood, filed an appeal which was granted by the district court, Judge Francis Matthew. I was the attorneys at the city attorney's office agreed to seek a reconsideration of the ruling on that appeal. We did submit a motion to reconsider, but the motion to reconsider was denied. And at this time, we are considering whether or not we should appeal the judge's ruling to the Court of Appeals. And we're in the process of considering that at this time.
Thank you. Thank you. That wasn't easy. I mean, they keep going, right?
Well, it's a project that was approved in 2021, and so it'll maybe 2 years before we get some final resolution about that. But our belief is that the board properly applied the code in that matter, and that we need to pursue that appeal to ensure that the code is complied with by applicants and people who object to projects. So that's where we are with that.
Well, we'll see. Keep us informed. Thank you. So our next meeting is January the 24th. We'll see you then. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Guida, so moved.
Aguilar Madrona, second.
Roll call vote.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Berkeley,
Yes.
Member Guida.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, board members Berkeley, for joining us, even if you're under the weather.
Yeah.
I feel better.
Yes.